February the 9th, 2017. Guys, we're watching a lot of things, but one of the most important right now, I think, that affects us directly, and it seems to be changing day to day, is what's coming out of the White House. We've seen the battle starting last Friday with the Ninth Circuit Court in Washington State coming in and blocking the immigration ban, or the 90-day, it was a 90-day program for most of the people to where they could reassess the vetting process, not only here in the United States, but at airports from the 7 countries that were named, to see if they were properly vetting. In other words, once they get into the air over the United States, it's kind of a little late to vet them here if there's problems. 99.9%, we have no problems. So remember, I did a video where they were, and I linked to the live audio feed from the Ninth Circuit Court, and we heard the arguments from both sides. We've been waiting for the results, and Jeff Sessions, remember, got through, and he's our new Attorney General. I think it's a great improvement from Loretta Lynch. Anyway, so today 3 executive orders came out. We haven't seen any, guys, in about a week. And I think they were regrouping and seeing how to put the legal terminology behind the law and these executive orders. Now, I haven't had time to really, I had just time since they came out to briefly read over these. Some of it's going to take more time to kind of look at it and think about where we're at and why they're being put in place. I'm just going to point out a couple things in the different ones, but there's 3 came out today, and it has everything to do, again, with the Ninth Circuit Court trying to block the 90-day ban on certain countries so that they can properly be vetted, so we're not seeing the terror activity that we're seeing overseas. Now, I'll start with this one. They all 3 came out. You notice your timestamp, February the 9th, 2017, for immediate release. Office of the Press Secretary. Presidential Executive Order on preventing violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officers. And guys, we saw with the pumped up violence that many say is Soros-based. And those, it was they were behind the Democrats. A lot of Republicans that we kind of see fighting Trump took money from Soros too. That's an entire different video. But if you remember yesterday, Trump had a meeting with the law enforcement from around the nation, different sheriffs, police officials, and different agencies. And he said, we are behind you from the White House 100%. And what he's saying is because, again, we saw this violence in Dallas and other places, and we saw police getting killed. So, and it wasn't just white police. It was black police, different. It was Hispanic police guys that were being killed. And it was all to create chaos. And so this executive order, the way that I'm reading over it, just very briefly touching the top. And later tonight, I'm going to go through it when I have time to do it. But I don't want to wait too late. I want to put them out there before you so that each one of you can look at it and come in with your comments, if you don't mind, or do a video on your channel and express your opinion, because what I say, I will miss a lot of it. Again, this is the first analysis, but I will miss a lot of things. But multiple people commenting on this is a lot better than one person, so we can kind of put it together. And then what happens, guys, if you notice on this channel, is people will read the comments and learn as much, or if not more, than they did in the video. And they really like that, and that's why we get a tremendous amount of comments. But again, let's look at this. I'll just touch on a couple things. And as I pull this one down, it's, again, they all start this way. By the authority vested in me as President, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Guys, don't worry about these executive orders. I think maybe less than a dozen, and our last president was over 300 or more than that, and all the presidents were getting way up in the numbers. But anyway, it says it shall be the policy of the executive branch to A, enforce all federal laws in order to enhance, guys, the protection and safety of federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officers, and thereby all Americans. In other words, protect the protectors. Now, I've got a feeling that we're not going to see a lot of corruption within the police departments, because it was kind of a forced corruption scenario when they could not enforce the laws in the last 8 to maybe 24 years. Think about it. But think about this too. It says enforce all federal laws. What is included in federal laws? Immigration policies. And if you pay attention to Breitbart, and if you don't, you should, you can go into look at Breitbart, the government from Texas. You can punch in California, Israel, anywhere you want to look. But if you go down to the border states and punch in their links and their information and news coming from there, there's federal immigration officers and Border Patrol that are being attacked daily. Guys, and what's so bad is they've been told to stand down. And the police at Berkeley, in this demonstration that we saw there not too long ago, where it looked like an organized group of militants or protesters, violent protesters that were in black hoods and face masks and carrying weapons, marched in there. And guys, one of the people that got busted in the same type riots in Washington, D.C., turned out to be a female fire department, a firefighter from Virginia. Very organized, and that's what they were saying about Berkeley. So we need to pay attention to that. But it says, again, to the protection of the and safety of federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officers. No other way around it, guys. They're going to protect the borders. Now, again, I'm going to go through these quickly. This one again today, February the 9th, 2017. See that? White House. It says presidential executive order on a task force on crime reduction and public safety. Throughout the campaign, it was very obvious that he was going to do this. And he always mentioned Chicago because it's one of the heaviest areas as far as crime goes and people getting killed, one of the highest in the nation. And so it needs to be stopped. And the reason it hasn't been stopped is because out of chaos comes order. And that has a two-edged sword. Just don't forget that. But it always starts out task force on crime reduction and public safety by the authority vested in me. Just touch on this. It shall be the policy of the executive branch to reduce crime in America. Many communities across the nation are suffering from high rates of violent crime. A focus on law and order and the safety and security of the American people requires a commitment to enforcing the law and developing policies that comprehensively address illegal immigration, here we go, drug trafficking, and violent crime. Now, guys, this is where the balance becomes delicate. It says the Department of Justice shall take the lead on federal actions to support law enforcement efforts nationwide and to collaborate with state, tribal, and local jurisdictions to restore public safety to all communities. Again, every time he's talked about this, Chicago was the main talking point. There's many other areas, but he's talking about sanctuary cities. He mentioned again illegal immigration. Don't you realize that sanctuary cities? And so this needs to be done. What would the opposition do as far as many are Soros-based or Soros-backed organizations, many politicians, both sides of the aisle? They would want to create more chaos and create more trouble to force federal action. In other words, if what Jeff Sessions and some of these guys are talking about and would like to accomplish is, before there was no threat, there was no really retaliation for the mayors of these cities and the governors of these states and sheriffs that allowed this to go on, and were told to back off and stand down and let it happen. Why? To create chaos. So what would happen now is, as far as looking at the chessboard of the situation, again, people in Chicago are crying out for help. They would love to walk down their cities at night. The streets in the daytime or nighttime. Go down to the local market, whatever. Go to the park, whatever, without being gunned down. But thanks to people like the mayor, Emanuel there, that was part of the original Obama administration, remember? They have they've appeared to be serious about it, but nothing's happened. So now the new president, our president, Trump, and the administration are being forced to go into this action, federal interaction into this area, FBI, and so forth. And so what you're going to see is the Democratic Soros-based reaction that it's going to be heavy-handed. And so we're going to see both sides of this. Just watch for it. But again, this is the Attorney General, which is now Jeff Sessions, shall determine the characteristics of the task force, which shall be composed of individuals appointed or designated by him. Guys, if you think Jeff Sessions is not fair and unprejudiced, you need to watch some of the videos on C-SPAN of the black senators that were behind Jeff Sessions and helped get him appointed, and the ones that went with him around the nation and talked to different people about actually what had happened, and they all recommended Jeff Sessions. So he's going to be extremely fair, but it's been so unfair for so long to the common public that just wants to be safe, just wants to raise their kids in Chicago and other cities, that you couldn't even report crimes, especially if it was some type of illegal immigrant crime. They were afraid it would be listed as a terrorist crime. Let's look at the third one, probably the most important. Now, this is the main page. If you just go in and hit executive orders, I'm going to link there. But to this one, Presidential Executive Order on enforcing federal law with respect to transnational criminal organizations and preventing international trafficking. On the surface, and this is included, is drug smuggling and people smuggling from across the Mexican border. Transnational criminal organizations and international trafficking. But what they are about to do, I think, and I may be wrong, but I would bet on that I'm right, because I've been keeping up with the news and reading some of the stuff that mainstream is not necessarily reporting about. And one is, some nations have declared the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization and around this world. And there was people in the Senate on both sides, and Congress, both sides in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, that tried to make the Muslim Brotherhood a criminal organization here in the United States. It was blocked by Obama. Doesn't take much to figure that out. And so we're dealing with with groups and organizations that were protected, not just Mexican cartels, but other organizations that are much more dangerous in some ways. Let's take a quick look at that. Now, Section 1, national criminal organizations and subsidiary organizations, including transnational drug cartels, has spread throughout the nation. What did he say? Including transnational drug cartels. Not only. Have spread throughout the nation, threatening the safety of the United States and its citizens. These organizations derive revenue through widespread illegal conduct, including acts of violence and abuse that exhibit a wanton disregard for human life. They, for example, have been known to commit brutal murders, rapes, and other barbaric acts. Goes from cartel to ISIS. Big It's a big play right there. These groups are drivers of crime, corruption, violence, and misery. In particular, the trafficking by cartels of controlled substances has triggered a resurgence in deadly drug abuse and corresponding rise in violent crimes related to drugs. Guys, if you got to dumb down America with such a large percentage now on heroin, then it's much easier to walk in and take over. Just give them another dose. Likewise, the trafficking and smuggling of human beings by transnational criminal groups risk creating a humanitarian crisis. And they do. Look at Europe. These crimes, along with many others, are enriching and empowering these organizations to the detriment of the American people. A comprehensive and decisive approach is required to dismantle these organized crime syndicates and restore safety for the American people. Remember, including the Mexican drug cartels, not only those. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm going to very likely touch across this thing, but ensure the federal law enforcement agencies give a high priority and devote sufficient resources to efforts to identify, interdict, disrupt, and dismantle transnational criminal organizations and subsidiary organizations, including through the investigation, apprehension, prosecution of members of such organizations, the extradition of members of such organizations to face justice in the U.S., and where appropriate and to the extent permitted by law, the swift removal from the United States of foreign nationals who are members of such organizations. The such organizations, guys, you watch. It's going to maximize the extent to which all federal agencies share information and coordinate with federal law enforcement agencies as permitted by law in order to identify, interdict, again, dismantle the transnational criminal organizations and their subsidiary organizations. Now, the video is already 17 minutes long, guys, and I could go on about it for a long time, and there's a lot here. I've tried to touch on some of the highlights of it, but there's much more. You guys take time, read it. Tomorrow I'm going to, and later tonight and tomorrow I'm going to look at the comments and try to put together a part 2 of this by looking at what you guys think. It's a heads up. Be safe.